It's the early 2000s, and you're in the middle of nowhere, Boondocks, USA. You've just gotten AOL dial-up internet. It's slow as hell, but you're excited. You know next to nothing on what it is, what it can do, or what's on it. But you do know that there are things like flash games out there. Free games that you could play without spending a cent. Or maybe that MMO that's playable despite the slow speed, called RuneScape. Or you could use it to look up pictures, albeit within 5 to 30 business minutes depending on size. Or learning about countless topics, countries, or otherwise. Maybe you could use that website named Wikipedia for help on writing that essay that your teacher wants. Sure, they said not to use it, but who's going to find out? Just as you plagiarize the articles word for word and get a failing grade. But not all was sunshine and rainbows. While being a good and a bad thing, things like IRC or emails could have scammers or even more nefarious purposes or uses. You've likely heard of the old scam of the Nigerian prince email. These are also known as advance fee scams, wherein the scammer attempts to get their mark to give them money in the prospect of receiving a greater sum than what had been given. And within a very short amount of time, in these early days of the internet, bots started becoming more and more prevalent. Spam and scam bots both starting off as simple scripts that would just send emails en masse, evolving further into scripts that could make accounts on websites that could post links to dubious websites all over. And then cut to the modern day and age, where more than half of the world's population, which is more than 4 billion people, now have access to the internet at large, and now even more recent still. We've had things such as deepfake audio and video, ChatGPT, and art AIs go from experimental, low quality, and niche to becoming widespread and oftentimes becoming near impossible to determine if it's real or not. So, what's the purpose of this rather lengthy preamble? It all leads me into the dead internet theory, whose origin is believed to have started in the early 2010s on 4chan. It started off as a conspiracy that asserted that the internet consisted mostly of bot activity, and was, or is, being curated via algorithms to control the general populace for the purposes of governments or corporations, by only showing people certain topics or trends, and by faking engagement to trick people into believing that a thing is more popular or real than in actuality. While at the time the theory had been balked at, the DIT has been steadily gaining more traction, especially in recent years as AIs are getting shoved into practically everything, ranging from search engines to replacing humans for customer support. And in all likelihood, the device that you're watching it on, whether it be a computer or a mobile phone, chances are that the company that you bought it from also has an integrated AI into it. Whether that's Google's Assistant, Samsung's Bixby, Apple's Intelligence, or Microsoft's Copilot, or its retired Cortana. Now, back in 2016, a security firm named Imperva had released a report that stated that bots had approximated 52% of all internet traffic. But the year at the time of this video, it's now 2024, and it's estimated that by 2030, it'll be likely that less than 5% of all of the internet's traffic will actually be from human beings. There's a fair few examples of how dire this botting has become in general. One such example is Twitter, wherein it was stated that approximately 24% of all tweets were from bots, according to a study done by Sysomos in 2009, with another estimating that somewhere between 10 to 15% of all accounts were bots, or somewhere between 20 to 50 million accounts. These bots were and still are frequently propaganda bots, oftentimes of foreign origin and being from countries with a vested interest in spreading misinformation, such as Russia or China. Another example is the innumerable bots that try to sell merchandise, such as the bots that scrape images and put them on t-shirts en masse, or the rather well-memed bots of body part here in bio. Now, all of this is not to say that all of the bots on Twitter are or were bad, some of them having very legitimate purposes, such as an automated bot tweeting of potential server issues with a service, like Steam. A fair few of these legitimate bots, however, have died off since Elon Musk had obtained Twitter, as X demands a payment for usage to the API, which is how many of the good bots performed their actions, whereas the bad, spam, and propaganda bots only need to make an account, which they can easily do en masse. Or see how game journalism, which has never exactly been the best example of originality, has now just started mass-producing garbage via ChatGPT, or other LLMs, large language models. Likewise, look at YouTube. There's no shortage of channels that are now just entirely voiced by AIs, and even if they aren't, they are likely using ChatGPT to write their scripts for them. We also have social AIs, with a company quite literally being named as such, whose purpose are meant to replicate talking to a human, some of which are also meant to prey on people like the girlfriend AIs, where their selling point is artificial love and affection. Some of the negative effects of that are already being felt, as there has been, at the time of the video, at least one attributable death to these AIs, with it having happened sometime in October of 2024. You also have an issue on YouTube and Twitch where you have people who have things called viewbots, where it appears that the individual is much more popular than in actuality. With it being said that at one point the viewbotting was so rampant that the YouTube algorithm programmers had actually coined a term called the inversion, in which it was believed that if it kept up, the algorithm would start seeing the fake viewbots as the real views and the humans as the fake ones. There's also a very real chance that bots and AI will get stuck interacting with one another, mayhaps thinking that the other bot is a person to sell a product to, or what have you, creating an infinite feedback loop. This has already happened in some experiments wherein two LLMs were made to talk to one another, and is happening to a degree on Twitter, albeit that's usually for engagement. This is a concern, as the methods of combating bots are wholly ineffective, and actual human beings are being suspected of being bots, resulting in accounts being suspended, or even outright banned. This isn't to say that the various AIs can't be good or have legitimate purposes, but their wide availability and the companies behind them tend to be unscrupulous. A good example is how ChatGPT and the many AI art bots have been trained on things that weren't paid for or with permission. Many of these companies run or ran web scraping scripts, or even AI that peruse the internet at large and gather images or text accordingly for the owner of the web scraper to use to train the AIs. The internet used to be a place where people could make their own websites and carve out their own little niche, but it's been monetized to hell and back again, with companies buying up domain names and waiting for them to be profitable, known as cybersquatting, and bots plaguing every avenue. While the origins of the dead internet theory of it being a strictly politicized thing was in most part anti-government paranoia, if things continue on the track that it's going, the internet will be dead, at least in a sense, as little to no content on it will be man-made, and it'll heavily discourage people from using it and browsing it, as it'll just be an endless echo chamber of bots. Love 'em or hate 'em, they're likely here to stay. But I, for one, do not welcome our new AI overlords. Thank you for watching. If any addendums or corrections are needed, they will be pinned in the comments. Sources will be in the description, and until next time, have a good one.